Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is hopefully going to be my last 1974 ATC90 video for a while. It's the day after Christmas. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season. Now today, we're going to take a look at a couple of things on this bike. I'm going to adjust the carburetor because if you saw my last video, after just putting it all back together, it just needs to be tweaked so that I've got the right air and fuel flow. We'll put the air box and the skid plate back on there. I've got a headlight I've got to go on. I got to look at the tail light. I suspect the bulb there may be bad. A couple other little things. So with that being said, let's get going. All right, so you can see I've got the fuel tank off again. I want to address a couple of things quickly. Number one, the spring here on the throttle. I scavenged that because I didn't get one that fit, and the one from the 110, the bore on the carburetor is much bigger. So I'm going to see if I can find a better spring because that one's not snapping back tight enough. Here's the carburetor again on the bench. If you watched the last video, had a little bit of what seems like an air leak problem, idle up and down. Taking a look at the parts diagram, this insulator isn't supposed to be there. That was part of the manifold, so we're going to get rid of that. And then this O-ring is a little bit perished, so we're going to replace that as well. And I think between those two changes, that's going to make a big difference. So in terms of that O-ring, years ago, I bought this assortment at Harbor Freight. And I can't tell you how many times over the years having this handy has saved me. Just great little set to pick up if you do a lot of this kind of work. All right, so with the new O-ring and no insulator, that is back on the bike, ready to go. Here's the throttle cable. You'll notice I took that spring off. And here's why I have that challenge. This is the 110 carburetor. Look at the difference in the size of the slide, size of the bore. So obviously, this carburetor, which always gave me trouble, will flow a lot more fuel. Here's the spring that I came up with. Not quite good enough. I'm going to see if I have something a little bit better somewhere. So after poking around a bit in my bin labeled V4 carb parts, I found this spring, which is quite a bit springier than the one I had in there. Well, off they go. In any case, we're going to try that spring, and I'm going to guess that's going to solve my throttle snapback problems. So if you guys are anything like me, and I'm guessing you are, you'll chase every little thing on these bikes. Now, I don't have the time to do that, so I'm putting it back together. I've got the air box that's got to go back on. Nice new filter in there. Pay attention to those details. My old boot was completely shot. This is a reproduction you can get from VintageMotorsports.net. The guy is the king of ATC parts. So we're going to get this back on there. I got to put the skid plate on. We'll take a look at the lights and see what else we got left to do. All right, so for the headlight, I don't have the right switch. What I've got here is just a regular on-off switch like you have on the handlebar. The handlebar switch is now my on-off switch. This switch is going to be on-off for the headlight until I get a real switch. And basically what I've done, you've got the yellow wire coming from the lighting coil that goes through the switch, runs into the blue side. The white side is not connected, and then the brown wire, which feeds back to the taillight circuit, is connected as well, so that when I start it up, turn on the light, got the headlight. No tail light. And just for the record, guys, when you look at the wiring diagram, the blue side shows like it's not connected to anywhere, right? But it's just one side of the bulb versus the other, and it's an AC bulb. So I have it connected to the blue because my headlight has a double connector on there, and that way I can feed it back to the taillight. So I'm going to order a bulb, but my guess is that taillight is going to work when I have a good bulb in there. So chapter 7 of things that can make you crazy. This is the original headlight ring that I'm throwing away. It had this tab on the outside. It's obviously off a different bike. Why do I say that? Well, when I went to put the new one on, the new one, which is a replacement part, has no tab, but it's supposed to be compatible. And what I realized somebody did along the line, they took the little tab on the inside that's supposed to be part of the headlight bucket, and they bent it out in order to use that. I bent it back, and we are good to go. And you'll also notice I replaced that wonky orange hardware because we all know Honda didn't do that. Here's a silly little thing, but when I got this bike, it didn't have the strap to hold down the gas tank. In fact, it had nothing. I put a zip tie on there the other day because I didn't have the clamp, but I picked one up, and that's the way it's supposed to look, and obviously that's much better. All right, so here we are, just about done. Yes, my bike has a very 1972, 1973 vibe. These fenders are definitely earlier and faded, look orange. I think now that that fender is off an earlier bike. I think the forks are 74 and somebody spray painted them orange. I'm going to paint that tank orange so that it really does have that earlier vibe. Then the last thing that gives it away as a later bike is the lack of the handlebar clamp here and the socket head bolts, which I don't like. I mean, you know, they're easier to work with, but on an old bike, they just kind of throw it off. Well, enter eBay and the fact that some of these parts are so damn inexpensive. Literally, I think I paid $35 for all of this. We're going to swap this on there and just give it that earlier retro vibe. So it's like 2 minutes effort to take off that existing top clamp. And here's what was on there. The socket head screws that I don't like. Here's what we're going to replace it with. And the first thing I'm going to do is just drop this on there and make sure that this is going to actually work on that 74 fork. So let's take a look at that. And here's a lesson in why 5-minute jobs take longer. You can see the threads here are a bit chewed up. And when you go over and take a look at the bike, they're a bit rusty and crusty, and I honestly don't know if those that I just took out of there are metric or standard. So what are we going to do? We're going to run a tap through here and clean this up. And sometimes I actually remember to check and make sure that the new parts are going to fit before I do anything crazy. This looks good, so let's clean up those threads. Yeah, so to make sure you get the right tap, and in this case it's a 10 millimeter with a 1.25 thread pitch, I find a nut that fits on the bolt that goes in the hole I'm tapping for, and then I just make sure the tap matches up to that. Really easy, works great. And another unsolicited plug, if I'm going to be cutting threads, I use this Magic Pro Tap cutting fluid. You could use regular oil, but this stuff works well. And then cleanup is simply a matter of getting that tap started. And working it through those threads. Basically straighten them back out again. You don't have to go too deep, no deeper than the bolt itself, but when you're done, it should spin freely. And if we try the bolt in there now, it should just go right in. All right, tap out, bolt in. And that's what you're looking for. All right, and switching that out now gives you that vintage look, plus, if you wanted to, the ability to turn the handlebars. If you loosen this, you can lift this up and actually turn it so that you can get it parallel with the bike and be in a position to store this in the trunk of your car if you so desire. That was a big selling point for Honda in the early days. Although you don't see a lot about it, these early bikes, lift that up and spin it, and one bolt will take off both wheels and the axle. Pretty easy to break down.
Hey guys, one thing I wanted to mention while I was tuning the carburetor, at one point the bike just died and I couldn't get it going again. Pulled it for a couple of minutes. It's like something's wrong. And I checked the wiring because I had just put that harness in and it's all good. So I said, hey, let me pull the plug. Pull the plug, grounded it, pull the cord, no spark. Had another random plug on the bench, put that in, pulled it, spark. So my plug was bad. And this is the plug that came out of that 110 engine because it's the only one I had. It's a DH8A, or no, D8HA plug. So it's just completely dead out of the clear blue sky. So if you're doing a tune-up, just replace your spark plug. They don't last forever.
Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. I'm really happy with this bike now. Starts on one pole. It's got the, the 40 over 90 engine in it, which pulls pretty hard. I was trying to take it easy on it because I got to break it in, but I'm happy with that. And it's got the cool look. So all good. Now, I'm going to paint that gas tank orange, but I'm going to have to wait until it warms up before I do that. And then one other thing I may do when I paint the tank is I've got these really cool Honda badges. These are little press fit badges, but I've got two of these off of another bike that I'd like to be able to get on that tank as well. So what are you going to see next from me? Probably the 74 ATC90 back here. I think I've got an earlier video from when I bought that bike. And, tires and wheels has got to be cleaned up. The tank is new. I don't know where it came from. The plastics are good, but I'm going to have to rebuild that engine. Really straightforward. I know the 70 engine's backwards and forwards. So until then, guys, enjoy your three-wheelers. Now I got the three-wheeler bug. I want a 200X. I want a 350X. And maybe even a Big Red or a 250SX. I don't know. All of a sudden, it's like a Lay's potato chip. You can't have just one. So thanks for watching, everybody. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. I noticed that the other day. So close. Get me over the line. And we'll keep the content coming. Thank you. Happy holidays, and we'll see you soon.